We got
I
this,
don't want to do this anymore.
No, we got this, Max.
No,
You're a champion.
I don't have it.
You're a champion. Stop it.
I don't have it.
Stop it.
Here's a tight, word-by-word rephrase that keeps the same meaning, same intensity, same flow, but with fresh wording throughout. Backhand index pointing down, guns drawn. Deputies fully armed. A queen's stronghold surrounded once again. But this time, the trail doesn't point to some random prank caller. It leads directly to a billionaire power player. Someone Nicki claims has been pulling strings behind the scenes, engineering her downfall in silence. And what Jay-Z is alleged to have done next flipped the entire situation on its head. The Queen's fortress under attack. Picture this for a second. You're Nicki Minaj. You've sold over 100 million records across the globe. You've dominated every feature you've ever jumped on. You've broken chart records people swore no female rapper would ever touch. And you've built enough wealth to buy a $20 million mansion in Hidden Hills, the same ultra-exclusive gated community where the Kardashians live, where security is meant to be airtight and privacy is supposed to be guaranteed. Behind those gates, you're supposed to be untouchable. But instead, you're waking up to flashing red and blue lights, guns aimed at your front door, tactical vehicles parked across your pristine lawn, helicopters circling overhead like you're a top priority criminal. And yet, you haven't done a single thing wrong. Not once. Someone, and Nicki believes she knows exactly who, keeps calling the police on her. Fake emergencies, invented shootings, completely fabricated child abuse reports involving her infant son. Every single time, law enforcement arrives in force, locked, loaded, and ready for combat, right at the Queen of Rap's doorstep. Meanwhile, whoever is making the calls disappears without a trace. This has been Nicki Minaj's reality for years, and she's reached her breaking point. Before we even get into the swatting itself, it's important to understand that her properties have been targeted before. Back in February 2017, Nicki's Hollywood Hills home on the 2600 block of Beaumont Drive was broken into while she was out of town. Burglars walked away with $175,000 worth of jewelry and valuables. But they didn't stop there. They trashed the place, slashed her clothing, and overturned furniture on their way out. Destruction for no reason other than cruelty. The LAPD investigated, but no suspects were ever identified. Nicki wasn't home, so she avoided physical harm, but the message was clear. Her homes were vulnerable, and whoever was behind it felt untouchable. Fast forward to 2023, when the situation escalated into something far more dangerous. The swatting incidents started making national headlines. And unlike a burglary, swatting doesn't just put your belongings at risk, it puts lives in danger. On June 5, 2023, a false report was called in accusing Nicki Minaj and her husband, Kenneth Petty, of abusing their 2-year-old son at their Hidden Hills estate. Think about how calculated that is. Not a noise complaint, not a disturbance. Child abuse, an accusation guaranteed to trigger the fastest, most aggressive police response possible. Deputies flooded the property. Armed officers entered a home where a toddler lived. And what did they find? Nothing. No evidence. No crime. No victim. No signs of abuse. It was a deliberate swatting hoax. Nicki responded by going nuclear on social media, hiring private investigators, and demanding accountability from local authorities. But it didn't end there. Not even close. Just 24 hours later, another call came in, this time claiming a shooting at the residence. Completely fake. 2 back-to-back hoaxes in a single day, each one designed to bring guns to a mother's door. Then in August 2023, it happened again. Another false report of a shooting at the property, triggering a massive police response with tactical units and crisis teams swarming the home like it was an active battlefield. No crime. No suspects. No answers. 3 times in just a few months, someone weaponized law enforcement against Nicki Minaj and her family. And every single time, the trail went cold. Nicki didn't stay silent about what she believed was happening. She went on record and made it clear these were not random pranks.
My home swatted twice with drawn
they magically, no one seemed to find the person.
But the situation truly turned toxic around money, specifically the TIDAL deal. When Jay-Z launched TIDAL in 2015, he rolled it out as an artist-owned platform, recruiting a high-profile group of musicians as stakeholders. Nicki Minaj, Madonna, and J. Cole were all reportedly promised 3% ownership each in exchange for exclusives and promotion. Nicki stood front and center at the launch, shoulder to shoulder with the industry's biggest names, publicly backing the platform. She followed through on her end, delivered exclusive content, promoted the service, and put her reputation behind the brand. Then in 2021, Jay-Z sold TIDAL to Jack Dorsey's company, Square, for $32 million. And according to Nicki, that's where everything went sideways. She claims the money never added up. She says she never received proper documentation confirming her ownership stake. And when the sale was finalized, she was allegedly offered just $1 million to walk away, far less than the roughly $9 million her 3% stake should have been worth based on the sale price. She didn't quietly accept it. She didn't negotiate behind closed doors. She blew it up publicly, aggressively, and without apology. But the situation truly turned toxic around money, specifically the TIDAL deal. When Jay-Z launched TIDAL in 2015, he rolled it out as an artist-owned platform, recruiting a high-profile group of musicians as stakeholders. Nicki Minaj, Rihanna, Madonna, and J. Cole were all reportedly promised 3% ownership each in exchange for exclusives and promotion. Nicki stood front and center at the launch, shoulder to shoulder with the industry's biggest names, publicly backing the platform. She followed through on her end, delivered exclusive content, promoted the service, and put her reputation behind the brand. Then in 2021, Jay-Z sold TIDAL to Jack Dorsey's company, Square, for $32 million. And according to Nicki, that's where everything went sideways. She claims the money never added up. She says she never received proper documentation confirming her ownership stake. And when the sale was finalized, she was allegedly offered just $1 million to walk away, far less than the roughly $9 million her 3% stake should have been worth based on the sale price. She didn't quietly accept it. She didn't negotiate behind closed doors. She blew it up publicly, aggressively, and without apology.
So you're saying that Brother Billionaire would use a legal loophole to not pay a black woman that upheld her part of the bargain, then threaten her that if she didn't sign a random paper in 24 hours, she would lose out on a measly $1 million because that's what y'all were offering? I'm so glad I said nope. Scare tactics and manipulation to steal what I worked for.
Let that really register. A billionaire, one of the wealthiest figures in the entertainment industry, allegedly exploited a legal technicality to underpay a woman who fulfilled every obligation she was given, then attempted to pressure her into signing away her rights within a 24-hour deadline. That's not business. That's extortion. In July 2025, Minaj publicly demanded between $100 and $200 million in a post on X. Critics were quick to say, if someone owed me $200 million, I'd be in court, not tweeting. But her fan base didn't miss the point. The Barbs blasted the message across every platform, repeating the same line over and over. Jay-Z owes Nicki Minaj money and an apology. But the TIDAL money is only one piece of the puzzle. Minaj has also alleged that Jay-Z blocked her from releasing the Pink Print as a TIDAL exclusive in 2014, a move she says resulted in leaks and major financial losses. She further claimed that a beat originally intended for her 2018 track Thought I Knew You, featuring The Weeknd, was taken and handed to Beyoncé instead, despite Minaj saying she already had the paperwork in place. On top of that, her collaboration with Nas on a song titled Casino was allegedly buried through legal action, effectively erasing the track and costing her hundreds of thousands of dollars. Minaj has suggested the real reason wasn't business at all, but lingering animosity, Jay-Z's unresolved resentment toward Nas dating back to their legendary early 2000s rivalry. And then there's the swatting. Nicki didn't just vent about it. She explicitly connected the harassment at her home to the very people she believes have been working against her all along, drawing a straight line between industry power plays and armed officers showing up at her front door.
Isn't it funny how they kept trying to say Desiree Perez's black son-in-law was abusing her daughter to get him falsely imprisoned? Remember the 3 times my home was swatted, claiming a man in the home had a gun? Does this?
Nicki is saying the strategy never changes. False allegations, invented emergencies, law enforcement turned into a weapon against anyone who crosses certain powerful people. Whether that can be proven in a courtroom is a separate issue, but the pattern she's pointing out is precise, detailed, and repeated across multiple situations. When someone keeps describing the same group using the same method on different targets, at the very least, the question has to be asked. Roc Nation's shadow play. If you thought the TIDAL money was the full picture, then you haven't been paying close enough attention. Because the real conflict isn't just about unpaid millions or stolen equity. It's about power, about who gets fed in this industry and who gets slowly frozen out. And according to Nicki Minaj, the weapon of choice isn't diss records or slick subliminals. It's a full-scale corporate apparatus working quietly behind the scenes. Roc Nation, the management and entertainment powerhouse, has been led by CEO Desiree Perez since 2019. Minaj has accused Perez and the organization of committing serious harm to Black people and of planting paid insiders to sabotage both her career and her family. Sit with that wording for a moment. Paid moles, not passive-aggressive industry snubs, not subtle whisper campaigns. Nicki is alleging deliberate, funded infiltration of her professional and personal spaces by operatives working on behalf of one of the most powerful management companies in entertainment. This goes far beyond rap beef. It goes far beyond business disputes. What she's describing sounds closer to a covert operation. The Super Bowl became the most visible pressure point in this ongoing war, a moment the entire culture could watch the dynamics Nicki had been talking about for years unfold on the biggest stage in American entertainment. Roc Nation has an official partnership with the NFL, helping curate major events, including the halftime show. That isn't speculation. It's a contractual arrangement that gives Jay-Z's company direct influence over who performs at the most watched musical event on the planet. So when the 2025 Super Bowl 59 halftime show was announced in 2024 and Kendrick Lamar was selected instead of Lil Wayne, in New Orleans, Wayne's hometown, the city that raised him, where he's practically a living landmark, Nicki called the decision disgusting and evil. She framed it as Jay-Z deliberately punishing the entire Young Money lineage because of his personal issues with her, tweeting, "One end took a knee, the other end took the bag." She wasn't alone in that interpretation. Birdman, Lil Wayne's mentor and the founder of Cash Money Records, publicly backed her up, calling the situation straight up foul. Nicki also alleged that Jay-Z was actively pushing Megan Thee Stallion, a Roc Nation signee, while intentionally sidelining Minaj from major opportunities, award recognition, tour placements, industry events, and high-profile platforms. In Nicki's version of events, ignoring her wasn't enough. She believes he needed to replace her, elevating someone under his umbrella while burying the woman who refused to submit. And Nicki wasn't just venting. She was naming patterns. She was pointing to specific behaviors she claims Roc Nation uses whenever attention turns toward them. According to her, there's a full-blown distraction playbook.
Anytime Cock Nation is in the news for something they don't want you to know, few things will happen. One, Will Smith is going to appear. Two, a famous person is announced dead. Three, their allies will begin to post and say nasty things about the queen. Four, Lace Z will pop up looking dumb.
For stages, for distractions, an entire misdirection system that, according to the Queen, kicks in automatically every time Roc Nation comes under public pressure. Surprise appearances by Will Smith, sudden celebrity deaths or announcements, coordinated social media pile-ons against Nicki from industry insiders, and Jay-Z resurfacing publicly looking strangely disconnected. Believe the theory or don't, but the fact that Nicki can outline a numbered step-by-step operational sequence, and that the Barbs have cataloged examples across months of news cycles that appear to follow that exact order shows just how deep this narrative runs among her supporters and how firmly she believes it herself. Nicki isn't speaking in riddles or tossing out vague suspicions. She's laying out what she claims is a consistent, repeatable playbook, one she says she's watched activate again and again in real time. She's challenging people to stop scrolling, pay attention, and confirm it on their own. At the same time, swatting at her Hidden Hills home didn't ease up as the feud intensified. If anything, it increased, almost as if the escalation was happening in lockstep. Between April 9th and April 10th, 2025, a non-9/11 call was placed reporting an assault and a shooting involving a Black woman matching Minaj's physical description, with two suspects dressed entirely in black allegedly still on the property. That level of detail matters. This wasn't a vague shots-fired claim. Someone described her without using her name, invented suspects to raise the threat level, and deliberately used a non-emergency line, suggesting planning and sophistication beyond a random internet prank. Deputies from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department arrived at the mansion in force, guns drawn, prepared for an active crime scene, only to find nothing there. Nicki was roughly 3,000 miles away on the East Coast at the time. This marked the fourth confirmed swatting incident in roughly 2 years. Let that sit for a moment. For times in 24 months, someone intentionally picked up a phone, constructed a detailed fake emergency, and sent sent armed officers to a home where a child lives. Nicki has publicly stated that during multiple responses, firearms were drawn near her son, loaded weapons pointed at doors and walls behind which a child was sleeping. She publicly pleaded for help from Gavin Newsom, who, according to Minaj, never responded. She blamed political corruption for the silence, while fans connected the dots to Jay-Z's political ties, pointing to Roc Nation's criminal justice reform work and its relationships with state officials. One viral fan post summed up the anger. The industry and politicians turned on Nicki, her home was repeatedly swatted, and Newsom offered no protection, only making the situation feel darker. Minaj's Hidden Hills address is publicly accessible due to Kenneth Petty's sex offender registry requirements, making her family uniquely exposed to this type of targeting. While other celebrities like Jennifer Aniston and Lil Wayne have experienced swatting incidents, the frequency and increasing severity of Nicki's cases stand apart from anything else in Hollywood. Each swatting costs taxpayers thousands of dollars and carries the real risk of deadly outcomes. Under California law, perpetrators can face fines up to $1,000 and jail time, with harsher penalties if anyone is physically harmed. In a series of cryptic posts in June 2025, Nicki Minaj teased explosive revelations about Roc Nation's alleged playbook, quoting her own lyrics from the No Frauds remix of Lil Wayne, paired with NFL and phone emojis. She went on to claim that in 2025, Roc Nation required a $40 million financial rescue and was relying on diversions, including the swatting incidents, to deflect attention from internal money troubles. Minaj also alleged that informants were planted at her concerts, even suggesting that Jay-Z himself was spotted nearby during the opening dates of her tour. Zooming out, the broader industry response reflected growing isolation. Media figures like Joe Budden and DJ Vlad dismissed Minaj's tirades as erratic and desperate, arguing she was cutting herself off from the industry entirely. But optics didn't matter to Nicki. In her mind, she was up against a coordinated machine built to mute her voice, and retreat was never an option. Then the queen went fully nuclear. By early 2026, Minaj had shifted from subtle shots to all-out scorched earth attacks aimed straight at the core of Jay-Z's public image. Any restraint she may have shown in previous years, minimal as it already was, vanished altogether. The Grammy Awards became the newest frontline in a conflict swallowing everything around it. After being mocked during the ceremony, Minaj erupted, unloading a flood of social media posts that took the feud into uncharted territory, not just for her, but for anyone daring to challenge Jay-Z. She didn't rely on bars or subliminal shots this time. She arrived with what she framed as receipts. Minaj reposted old photographs of Jay-Z standing near a teenage Beyoncé and Aaliyah, branding him a child predator in all caps and tying the images to wider, incendiary claims about his history with young women in the industry. The internet erupted. Barbs boosted every post. The Bayhive rallied in defense. Music journalists rushed to verify the claims. When the dust finally settled, the photos were debunked. The women pictured were confirmed to be around 20 or 21 years old at the time, not minors as Minaj had suggested. But by then, the impact was irreversible. The posts had already reached millions, been screenshotted, reposted, and etched into the permanent archive of the feud. And that was exactly the point. Minaj wanted Jay-Z subjected to the same level of scrutiny she felt the industry had aimed at her for years. She also took aim directly at Roc Nation's inner circle, calling out Desiree Perez by name, the executive steering the company since 2019. And Nicki showed zero restraint doing it.
Desiree Perez, you got bigger fish to fry, bookie. Conspiracy, false imprisonment, civil rights violation. Oh, Nation, y'all suck.
Conspiracy, false imprisonment, civil rights abuses. Those aren't throwaway claims tossed into a messy social media argument. Those are federal-level, career-destroying, freedom-threatening allegations being aired globally by one of the most followed voices in hip-hop. Nicki Minaj was, in plain sight and on the record, telling the entire internet, creating a permanent archive, that the CEO of one of the largest entertainment management companies on earth had engaged in conduct that violated basic constitutional rights. Whether any of these claims would survive scrutiny in a courtroom is a separate and critical question. But the reality is that she repeated them publicly, without hesitation and without retraction, to tens of millions of followers. That alone cemented them as an irreversible part of the public narrative surrounding Roc Nation, Desiree Perez, and Jay-Z's entire ecosystem. Minaj linked everything back to the swattings. The false emergency calls, the weapons drawn, the repeated use of American law enforcement as a tool of intimidation against anyone who dared challenge powerful interests. In her version of events, the raids on her home weren't the work of some bored online troll chasing chaos for fun. They were part of the same system, the same tactics, and the same actors she claimed had previously attempted to entangle members of Desiree Perez's own family with fabricated abuse allegations. Different targets, same playbook, same goal, control through fear, intimidation through institutions. And she made it clear she wasn't backing down, no matter how many cease and desist letters showed up at her doorstep. Minaj also folded long-circulating paternity rumors involving Jay-Z and Rymir Satterthwaite into her accusations, adding yet another strand to an already dense and volatile web. She went further, accusing Jay-Z of harboring deep resentment toward her because she never offered him the validation, deference, or approval he had historically received from nearly every major figure in hip-hop. According to Nicki, his ego simply couldn't reconcile with a woman in rap who built an empire without his blessing, who reached commercial dominance without his cosign and refused to submit to his influence. Rather than respecting her autonomy or recognizing her as an equal who earned her place, she alleged he worked deliberately to undermine her, erase her impact, and elevate artists under his own banner as substitutes. Conflict hit its apex when Minaj announced she was stepping away from releasing new music altogether, directly attributing that decision to Jay-Z and the environment she said he helped create, one that made it impossible for her to move freely within the industry. Pause on that for a moment. One of the most commercially successful female rappers of all time. The woman who kicked open doors for every female MC who followed was now talking about stepping away from music altogether, claiming that a single man and the operation around him had damaged her career, drained her finances, and put her family's safety at risk. Through all of it, Jay-Z has never answered directly. Not one public statement, no tweet, no lyric, nothing. Silence has been read 100 different ways. Admission of guilt by Nicki Minaj's supporters, calculated restraint by his defenders, and pure arrogance by those watching from the middle. There have been whispers from industry sources about possible defamation lawsuits involving both Jay-Z and Beyoncé, but as of early 2026, no legal action has actually been filed. Instead, Jay-Z's response, as relayed through his team, has reportedly consisted of cease and desist letters, formal legal warnings that Minaj openly dismissed as meaningless. Meanwhile, separate legal issues were unfolding on another front. A judge authorized the potential sale of Minaj's Hidden Hills home over a $53,000 unpaid judgment tied to Kenneth Petty's assault of a security guard. Minaj paid the amount at the last possible moment, narrowly avoiding seizure of the property. Although the case had no direct link to her conflict with Jay-Z, fans immediately connected the dots, interpreting every legal or financial setback as part of a broader, coordinated effort to apply pressure. And that's what makes this entire saga both captivating and unsettling. The verifiable facts exist. The swattings happened. The TIDAL equity dispute is real. The Super Bowl halftime exclusion of Lil Wayne is real, and Minaj's public accusations against Roc Nation are preserved across major media outlets. What remains contested isn't whether the events occurred, but what they mean, who orchestrated them, and how far the consequences may ultimately reach. Here's a clean word-by-word rephrase, same meaning, same tension, just restructured and sharpened for flow. But the alleged link between Jay-Z and the swattings, the claims of coordinated sabotage, planted insiders, and organized intimidation remains unproven. As of 2026, no legal resolutions, indictments, or lawsuits have emerged. What's left is a woman who appears to genuinely believe she's battling for her survival against a massive system, and a system that refuses to publicly acknowledge she's even there. So when you see headlines like "Police surround Nicki Minaj's home after Jay-Z incident," it's critical to understand this isn't about a single episode, a lone evening, or one phone call. It's the buildup of years of conflict, financial disputes involving hundreds of millions of dollars, accusations of career interference tied to one of the most powerful management companies on the planet, repeated swatting incidents that endangered a child, explosive personal allegations that could end reputations, and an intensifying standoff between a queen who won't be quiet and an empire that she says has been trying to crush her spirit, her finances, and her family from the moment she stopped playing by their rules. Police continue showing up at her doorstep. The allegations keep pouring out on her timeline. Jay-Z continues to say nothing, and neither side appears remotely interested in retreating, resolving, or allowing this to fade away quietly. If Nicki Minaj is correct about even half of what she's claimed, this represents one of the most alarming examples of systemic abuse abuse of power in modern entertainment. A billionaire allegedly leveraging corporate machinery, political relationships, and industry influence to intimidate, financially ruin, and silence a woman who demanded what she believed she was owed. If she's wrong, if the dots she's connecting are coincidental and the swattings have no relation to the feud, then this stands as one of the most prolonged, public, and costly breakdowns the culture has ever witnessed, one that's already damaged relationships, earned opportunities, and threatens her long-term legacy. Critics like Joe Budden frame it as self-destruction. Barbs see it as a lone warrior queen standing against giants. Jay-Z's silence continues to speak for itself, allowing the noise to dissipate while his empire moves forward uninterrupted. Either way, the spotlight isn't dimming. The receipts keep stacking on both sides. And make no mistake, this story is nowhere near finished. If you enjoyed this video, click on any of the cards on your screen.